For the Chicago Bears, they have the number one overall pick. They have Justin Fields. They have Matt Eberflus at the head coach, but that's about it. So, what are your thoughts on what the Chicago Bears need to do to improve for next year?
Well, first things first, the Bears need a miracle. They are just a subpar team, to say the least, and that's honestly putting it mildly. They're the worst team in the NFL. They had a 3-14 record, and that's despite the fact that they have an up-and-coming quarterback in Justin Fields, who, from an athletic perspective, is probably the most exciting player at that quarterback spot that they've had in quite some time. But when it comes to the overall team, it's just weak from top to bottom. And I'm going to focus more on the defensive side of the ball here first. I know Kevin will probably allude to some things on the offensive side of the ball. But when it comes to their defense is atrocious. And you could look at it from all different aspects. You could look at it from a passing defense perspective. You can look at it from a pass rush perspective. There's multiple ways that you could look at it. I'm going to focus on two things that need to be addressed when it comes to their defense. First is their pass rush. Their pass rush is horrendous. They had 20 sacks as a team. Kev, there have been some players in the NFL over the last couple of years who have individually had 20 plus sacks. And the Bears had 20 sacks as a unit last year. It was dead last in the NFL. The only team that was a little bit ahead of them was the Falcons. The Falcons had 21. So you're talking about bottom of the barrel bad. And Kev, I'm going to be honest here. Let's go to their depth chart. And this is really the first time that I've looked at their depth chart from top to bottom. And Kev, when I look at their depth chart, their defensive linemen, I can't tell you anybody that I know off the top of my head. Trevis Gibson, Mike Pennell Jr., Justin Jones, and Dominique Robinson are your starters? Who are these guys? And granted, some of these guys might be young. Some of these guys might be up and coming. I'll give them a little bit of room there. But for God's sakes, the Bears have nobodies on the defensive front four. So when it comes to the Bears this offseason, they have the number one pick. Maybe they use that number one pick to address something on this defense. And hopefully I would think that they would have to do something with their pass rush, because their pass rush is just abysmal. I mean, granted, we've talked about teams like the Eagles. The Eagles had 70 sacks as a unit. Imagine being 50 sacks behind a team like the Eagles in the Bears. It's just unfortunate that Bears fans have been subjected to this nonsense for the last couple of years, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then another part where it's kind of focused on that same area of the defense is their rush defense. Their rush defense is in that same boat of being bottom of the barrel. And it's simply just because it could be the player personnel that could be the issue. It could be that the coaching staff's not putting them in the proper positions to be able to execute game in and game out. But the fact of the matter is that their rush defense needs to be improved tremendously. So when it comes to the Bears this offseason, maybe this is a year where they utilize their cap space to their advantage, because the Bears have a lot of cap space to work with, that they do something to rebuild and reshape this defensive line, because they are losing the battle in the trenches game in and game out. And the record shows, the statistics prove it. And, when it comes to the Bears, they've been basically borderline irrelevant for the last couple years. The last couple years, they've just been an eyesore. And it starts on the defensive side of the ball. It's cliche, but defense wins you championships. And right now, the Bears do not feel the defense that would even be remotely close to even be in contention for a playoff contention area. So the Bears have a lot of things to improve upon. I just wanted to focus on the defense, and I'll let Kevin take it away from here, because I know he has some things to say about the Bears as well.
I mean, Kyle already made 2 big points. Obviously, we're talking about the line up front, right? The first front four. That is obviously, like he said, rush defense and pass defense within the pass rush in and of itself. I'm going to stay on that same side, but flip it to the offensive side. And I'm going to say the offensive line. Justin Fields was sacked 55 times. That is tied for league most, along with Russell Wilson. When you have a mobile quarterback like Justin Fields, when you have someone that's still developing, when you don't have a lot of playmakers on the outside, that is going to be the point where I say, well, then you got to keep him upright. You got to give him the time to make those definitive decisions. You got to make sure that he is going to have the available space in front to go and make those reads. If he's consistently pressured, what is he supposed to do? He's already young. He's inexperienced. He's run first because he was almost going to break the single season rushing record. If I believe, I don't know if he was benched for the last game. He was hurt in another game. So, I mean, like, I truthfully think if he played all 17 games, he would have beat Lamar's rushing record this year. But anyway, back to what I was saying. If his first instinct is already to run with the ball, it's definitely not helping when he has 0 seconds to actually scan and read the field to make a definitive read as to where his first look is, where his second read is, where the check down is, if he's got 3-4 defensive people in his face at a time. So when you're talking about the development of a young quarterback, when you're talking about someone that showed you a lot of flashes of who he potentially could be for the remainder of his career, that starts with the line up front. From the moment that ball is snapped from the center's hands and it touches the quarterback, if he has less than 3-4 seconds to scan and throw, you're doing him a disservice. Injuries are going to mount up. He's already mobile, so you know he's going to take unnecessary hits. You have a defensive-minded head coach, so offensively, maybe their schemes aren't exactly fitting. And then you go into the fact of what I had mentioned just a few moments ago. They don't have any big receivers. Darnell Mooney, not a definitive number one. They traded for Chase Claypool. He sucks. Like, who are you really throwing to on the outside? Cole Kmet at the tight end spot? Like, he can't stay healthy either. David Montgomery can't stay healthy in the backfield. The Bears are riddled with a lot of issues that they need to address this offseason. But for me, the most important, the most glaring, and the most obvious, got to protect your franchise. And that's by making sure that the offensive line is stout.